We are, all of us, the residents of a swiftly shrinking globe, where what was once local is fast becoming global, and our decisions and opinions resonate well beyond our own borders. Join me each week, your host, Al Zucaro, from the epicenter of the Western Hemisphere, Boca Raton, Florida, in sunny South Palm Beach County, for a pointed look at politics, immigration, culture, and what it means to be a citizen of the world. Well, good evening, folks, and welcome back to Citizens of the World. I'm Al Zucaro. I'm your host, and just by way of introduction, tonight's show is a little bit jam-packed. There's actually so much stuff going on that I don't almost know where to begin. What we will be covering a little bit today is the remnants of election 2012. We'll be talking a little bit about the Allen West Murphy recount in St. Lucie County here in South Florida. And then we're going to talk about a topic that we cannot not talk about, and that is about what's going on in Israel and the what apparently is the escalating war, perhaps even ground war by the time we get through with this thing, that's taking place in that area of the world. After that, I want to go back to our original themes. Remember, it was immigration law as a precursor for economic development, and to that end, I'm going to review a phone conference that I participated in the other day with the American Immigration Lawyers Association, and then I'm going to look at some of the headlines from this past weekend where all of a sudden Democrats and Republicans seem to be willing to come together once again to try and find comprehensive immigration reform. And when that happens, that will be a very interesting argument that we will make. Then finally, we're going to talk in kudos and KOs about some of the other miscellaneous items that are going on, but particularly with a little bit of a focus on culture as a precursor to commerce. So with all of that said, remember this portion of the show is brought to you by Fugazi International Travel. They can be found on the web at www.fugazitravel.com, and I will be back in a moment. Well, folks, if you remember, last week I said that I was going to put together elections 2012. Well, sometimes the best laid plans of mice and men, they often go awry. And in this case, what we have here is we have another challenge to the state of Florida with regards to the ability to count votes. Now, you'll remember back in 2000, Palm Beach County was the focus of this. And since 2000, we've had numerous opportunities where Palm Beach County continued to be the focus of this. This election, however, sees the opportunity to shift focus and perhaps blame to two counties to the north of us. That would be St. Lucie County, where the supervisor of election is having a very difficult time finding out how many people actually voted and is under very close scrutiny from both the state of Florida, the federal government, the campaigns of Allen West, and his opponent, Murphy. And we have all sorts of recounts going on and all sorts of dialogue being taken. Well, you know, I'm a supporter of Colonel Allen West. I have been. I made no secrets about that during the campaign. But it looks more and more like every opportunity that the lieutenant colonel has taken to try and show that there was bad votes has turned out to his disfavor. He has won a couple of minor skirmishes. He has been actually successful in getting the vote recounted, but it does not look like the recount of the vote has shifted. He is now apparently looking at his options, and legal experts that are reporting on this say that he has only a few. We commend Allen for his efforts. We commend him for pointing out all of the deficiencies in the voting process. And we also encourage him to continue to fight until he is satisfied that, in fact, he did lose. Now, that may cause some consternation amongst a lot of the power base here in Palm Beach County, but that's our opinion. And we commend Alan West for fighting the fight. Now, onward to another issue. You have to be under a rock not to know what's going on in the Gaza Strip in Israel. You can't not to have been observing the firing of rockets. I heard today that there were 8,000 rockets over the last decade or so fired into Israel from the Gaza Strip from the Palestinians, and that's more rockets that were sent into Israel than were sent throughout the entire World War II. The entire World War II, from Germany to I got to turn this thing off, folks. I apologize. From Germany into England. So, with that said, I don't know of any nation that would have sat by as long as the Israelis have sat by before retaliating. So I have to give them a thumbs up in their retaliation and in their attempt to solve all of this by negotiation. But just with that said, there is a report that was issued on November 15th, just a couple of days ago, that the U.S. Embassy will be operating at a reduced levels on Friday, November 16, and routine consular services are being suspended for that same day. Embassy families have been advised to not send their children to school on Friday. Non-essential office travel by embassy staff to the south of Israel remains prohibitive. That is a major, major setback. Israel is, in fact, one of our largest partners, both in foreign policy and in business. And to have all of that shut down and curtailed is a symptom of a greater problem, and that is that the world's commerce is going to be affected in a serious way with these warring factions in the Middle East. So I want to offer to my readers the caution that traveling to Israel right now is probably very scary. Traveling to most areas of that world for for people carrying U.S. passports is probably scary. And I would recommend that anyone actually traveling in those directions, before you get on the plane, you take a look at the advisories that are posted by the Department of State on a regular basis to determine the risk level that you are willing to absorb. So we have those items in commentary. We make those recommendations, and we will now take a break. And when we come back, we will be visiting on a local political level with Ira Sabin, who you know over the past few months has been our humorist and satirist on politics here in Citizens of the World. Be right back, folks. Well, folks, we're going to do a little bit on local politics now. For the last 10 years or so, the Republican Party here in Palm Beach County has been run by a very colorful character by the name of Sid Dinerstein. And for any of you that know Sid Dinerstein, you know that he has an opinion on a lot of things, and he's not afraid to give that opinion. I commend Sid for the work that he's done. He's been very, very effective. But he has decided to resign from the post, and now there is a competition that's going to take place amongst the members of the Republican Executive Committee to vote in their next chairperson. To that end, we've done an interview with Ira Sabin. Ira has put his name into the hat, and he wants to be elected to that position. As you know, Ira has been our political commentary and our satirist for the last few months. So I'm going to play for you over the next two segments of our show an interview that I did with Ira with regards to his beliefs, his opportunities, the talents, and the tools that he brings to the table, and his desire to assume the position. Here it goes, folks. First segment right now. Well, folks, as promised, we have Ira Sabin here. Now, you know Ira. He's been on the show many times. He's our political humorist and satirist, and I thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, Al.
But I actually wanted to bring Ira in so he and I could talk to you directly, for a number of reasons. First of all, I've already announced that campaign 2012 is over. National politics is done, at least for the moment. But there is a lot going on in local politics. First of all, the Republican Party took a pretty bad beating this last period. I don't think anybody would deny that. I don't think that's an overstatement. And that affects us here in Palm Beach County. Now, the Republican Executive Committee for the last 10 years has been run by a man by the name of Sid Dinerstein. And anyone who knows Sid Dinerstein knows that when he comes into a room, there's not a whole lot of room in the room for anybody else. He loves to talk. He is very opinionated. very good at what he does, and for the last 10 years, he's done a pretty significant job with the REC. But he's decided that it's time that his wife married him for better and for worse, and now she wants him home for lunch, and he's not going to run again. Ira has announced that he's going to run. Ira is the treasurer of the REC, amongst other positions that he holds, and he's been a very active Republican here in Palm Beach County, and I thought this would be an opportune time for me and him to chat a little bit and present you with some of his ideas, his thoughts, his tools, his talents, and why he's qualified, and why this show is taking the time to give him that opportunity.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Hi.
Now, I don't really know the extent of what you know. Why don't you start a little bit about your history?
Okay.
And tell us the things that you are actively doing in the county at this point in time.
Well, a little bit about my history. This is my 50th year in politics. My first campaign was Richard Nixon in 1960 when I was 14 years old. I stood in, our viewers come from New York, they remember what a subway station is. And I stood outside a subway station handing out flyers for Richard Nixon. And to some of those people I gave those flyers to were my friends' parents. And at 14 years old, I learned some new words that I hadn't known before. Because as you can imagine, Brooklyn, and it still is, a very heavy Democratic bastion. And from there, I went on and...
Richard Nixon, of course, Republican.
Yeah, of course, I have Richard Nixon. And from there, I went on. I had a little flirtation along the way with Bobby Kennedy because, quite frankly, I thought he was ruthless enough to be president. And to be president, nobody wants to seem to think that, but you do have to have that ruthless streak in you, only because you have to make some very, very tough decisions along the way. Worked on the campaigns of Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Bob Dole, and all the Republican presidential candidates through Mitt Romney, as well as working on the campaigns of Allen West and Congressman Clay Shore. I currently am a member of the Republican Jewish Coalition, which did a heck of a job here in Palm Beach County. Because Palm Beach County delivered to Mitt Romney he won Palm Beach County, gaining more votes for a Republican candidate than anybody since George Bush. We did a phenomenal job doing that, and that was because of the Republican vote. And Mitt Romney got more Republican votes. He got 31% of the Jewish vote, which is more than any candidate since George Bush. So it was a tremendous victory for the Republican Party of Palm Beach County, but not a victory for the Republican Party nationally.
Let's just stop there for a second. Let's talk a little bit about the REC. The Republican Executive Committee. What's its structure? What's its makeup? And what role do you play in it today?
Well, the Republican Executive Committee is the county party. So the structure of the party is we have a membership of just over 200, and the primary responsibility of the REC is to get Republican candidates elected. And we didn't do well this time. We only won 2 races. We won Hal Valachay's race, and
that's for
Palm
County Commission.
County Commission,
right.
And we won Bill Hager's race, was for State House.
Right.
And those are the only 2 races we won. I could go into chapter and verse why we didn't win the other races, but we don't have that much time. The Republican Executive Committee, quite frankly, needs to be rebuilt. Sid, in his 10 years, did a phenomenal job of what Sid did. But it's time to rebuild the committee. The committee is kind of gone its own way. When I say that, there is no formal structure. Sid was kind of, when you came up with an idea, he said, run with it. It was pretty much run on an ad hoc basis. There was no structure with no standing committees. Now, as you know, Palm Beach County is the largest county east of the Mississippi. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's either the 2nd or 3rd largest county in the United States.
Yes.
And it's just too big for one man to handle, or one person to handle.
But your role there, you've been with the REC for a number of, you currently are its treasurer.
Correct.
And you currently have put in place a number of programs that have been used to improve the cash flow position and the available funding for the REC.
That's correct. We've instituted some new fundraising programs. We also instituted a program which is called Patriots 1000, which allows anybody, you don't have to be a member of the REC, you don't even have to be a Republican, to donate $1,000 and have private meetings with our Republican legislators and our Republican Party senior executives. We had an hour in a room with Governor Rick Scott. There were only 15 people in that room. Now, do you know, if you want to meet with Rick Scott for an hour, what type of donation that would cost you?
That's true.
And there were 15 people sitting there for an hour and asking him questions. We had Michelle Bachmann for an hour and 15 minutes. Just 12 people in a room. So this $1,000 donation gives people a chance to sit and meet with our party executives.
That was your idea?
Yes, sir.
And
yes,
Sid
sir.
told you to run with it.
Sid told me to run with it, and I ran with it. And even when I ran with it, Sid said, wait a minute, we have to modify it. But that was okay. A couple of his suggestions were right on the money. So we came up with a good idea. And over the past 2 years that this program has been instituted, we've raised nearly $100,000.
We're gonna take a little break right now and come
Okay.
back with the second half of the interview. In the second half of the interview, I'd like you to explore the makeup of the REC. There are a number of clubs all around the county.
Correct.
There are a number of people that are responsible. There's a staff, and then finally we want to come to why you want the job, and then, as all good politicians do, you ask for the vote.
Absolutely.
Okay. We'll be right back, folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, folks, under the banner of fireworks in politics today, I want to try and bring together the notion that immigration is a precursor, or immigration law is a lead up to economic recovery and to economic prosperity. There is no time in history when we had great bands of immigration here in the United States that did not result in an expansion of the economy of the United States. That is historical. Anybody can check that. Anyone with an opposing point of view, I'd like to hear it. So now, with the elections 2012 over, we are looking at an expansion of immigration influences inside the United States, and hence, I believe, a new opportunity for economic expansion. To that end, as a member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, last week I participated in a phone conference. And in that phone conference, the arguments that were outlined by some of the leaders of the Immigration Lawyers Association was that we will see, since there was such political success at the polls and immigration was a major issue, since there was such a recognition that the Hispanic populations in particular and other minority populations in general are very influential in the politics of the United States 2012 and looking into the future. And since there is now a rebirth on the part of both sides of the aisle, with a good example being Graham from North Carolina and Lindsey Graham and Chuck Schumer from New York coming together to talk about presenting immigration reform legislation, it is only natural for the lawyers of immigration to begin to prepare for what may be. So what is predicted is the following: that the administration, the current administration in Washington under Obama, will begin to put an emphasis on the value of immigrants as entrepreneurs. They will begin to put an influence on the value of immigrants to economic development, and they will follow that up with the value of immigration as job creators and something that has not been recognized in the Department of Labor over the last few decades. I want to make a comment. I said this once before. Ronald Reagan would not have been a Republican candidate if he were running today under the position that was taken with regards to immigration this past year. 1986, he brought legislation forward that was very, very well thought out and reasoned for how to deal with the then undocumented illegal aliens in the country. That is the kind of legislation that needs to be put together and brought forward again. It cannot be piecemeal. It must be comprehensive. And to that end, I commend both sides of the aisle to get working on this. The rumor is suspected that once Obama is inaugurated in mid-January, that one of the first initiatives that he will bring forward, or that Congress will attempt to bring forward, is immigration reform. To that I say, hallelujah. It's about time. We've been waiting for 10 years for comprehensive immigration reform, and we fully expect that it will take place. So I thank you for that. Couple of tidbits. Maryland passed its own version of the DREAM Act. 58% of the people said that they were interested in that, and exit polling suggested that 65% of the people that were asked want to see immigration reform completed in this next term by the Obama administration. So we are off to a good start on immigration. It is a driver of economic development, and we commend that movement. We always have, and look forward to it happening. We'll be right back, folks. Well, now for some fun items. Well, maybe not fun items. Kudos and KOs. First thing I'd like to do is point out, remember I said that culture is a precursor to commerce. And with that said, things are really changing now. The generation of Cubans, and we've talked about Cuba a lot on this show, that came here, were forced out of Cuba and came here with nothing, have by attrition begun to change. They're passed away, they're retired, they're older, they're tired, and they're younger generation, second generation or first generation Americans, and now second generation Americans are taking a different posture and a different look. The Kravitz Center in West Palm Beach should be commended. They brought the celebrated Cuban orchestra to South Florida. And in the past, that would have been a very controversial thing to do. As I said, times are changing. There was very little controversy around this. The Cuban orchestra came. It was performed, the National Symphony of Cuba. It was conducted by Guido Lopez Gavilan, and there was very little in the way of protest, if any, that was noticeable at all in the community. And in fact, I want to quote something that was written in the newspaper. It's by a gentleman by the name of Jose Uzal. Mr. Uzal has been a major contributor to Cuban issues here in Palm Beach County for as long as I can remember, 30 years that I've been here. And he says, quote, "Things have changed." And Mr. Uzal is the general manager of the Spanish language WBWP Channel 57 out of Riviera Beach. Continuing his quote, "There's no point in getting in the way of the arts. If the government allows it, well, let it be okay." But he still opposes lifting the embargo against Cuba. So we have culture as a precursor to commerce. We have a lot of opportunity that is now happening with people being allowed to travel to Cuba to visit their families on a regular basis. We have humanitarian issues going on for drugs and food. And we have a lot of discussion about lifting the embargo, which at this point in time, Mr. Uzal is not interested in following up, but it will happen. And then finally, was another article I saw about Cuba that said that even internal in Cuba, laws are changing. Now people that have defected, that left their country, left their families, who have been previously prohibited from going back to the country, are now, the law has changed in Cuba, and they are now being allowed to come back to visit their families, and they are not being challenged because of that. So I think that this is a very good opportunity to move on, and it's a good opportunity for Cuba to be opened up. And here in South Florida, the port of Palm Beach has always been the traditional port to Havana, and we should be perched and ready to do that very soon. Two other items I wanted to talk about. President Obama is traveling through Asia right now, and it is suggested by many of the commentators that this is a signal that he changes to his intentions are to change the focus away from the Middle East into the Southeastern Asian section. He's visiting 3 countries. I, for one, I think that that's a good move. I think that we have to open up more and more trade opportunities, and I think that I hope that this leads to a greater trading partnerships with Southeast Asian countries, particularly since most of the foreign direct investment that's coming into the United States is coming from Southeast countries. And then finally, a cute item. 2 states, I think it is, it's Colorado and Washington State, in this last election passed referendums that now allow for the legalization of marijuana for recreational use. Well, apparently, those 2 items not only have caused issues inside of the federal government, because the Department of Justice still takes the position that pot use is against the law, and the attorney generals of these states have been in discussion with the U.S. attorneys in their district as to how to treat that, or how to treat the constitutional mandates they are now operating under. But it's also caused some controversy in the Latin nations, because now they're wondering how or if the United States is going to back away from the alleged quote-unquote war on drugs and marijuana becomes a commercial property. So with all of that said, I'd keep an eye on that. It's very useful. Lots of other states, including the state of Florida, are looking at the possibility of medical use for marijuana. And then finally, with all of that said, I want to take a moment to wish everybody here a happy Thanksgiving. This show will be the only show that we produce this week. On Thanksgiving night, we will replay this show. But the fact of the matter is that this is an American holiday. It is designed to give thanks for the great blessings that we have. And I, for one, will be celebrating it with my family. And I thank you all for participating. Good night now. We are, all of us, the residents of a swiftly shrinking globe, where what was once local is fast becoming global, and our decisions and opinions resonate well beyond our own borders. Join me each week, your host, Al Zucaro, from the epicenter of the Western Hemisphere, Boca Raton, Florida, in sunny South Palm Beach County, for a pointed look at politics, immigration, culture, and what it means to be a citizen of the world.
Achieve, create, succeed.
Welcome to the next chapter. A new beginning. A great day. 2 leading companies have joined forces to form the most comprehensive service provider our industry has ever seen. We are a company dedicated to listening to and satisfying our customers, creating opportunities for our employees, achieving long-term sustainable growth, and we are positioned to deliver on all 3 of these goals better than ever before in our history. Today, we are ready to meet the needs of customers in every rental segment: business travelers, leisure travel, in town, and insurance replacement. From humble beginnings more than 50 years ago in the lower level of an auto dealership, with 7 cars and a dream, Jack Taylor started a tiny leasing company. With a hunch and a philosophy to take care of his customers and employees first, Jack's dream would grow into the largest rental car company in North America. And it would grow to be the most complete transportation service provider in our industry, expanding beyond car rental, including fleet management, car sales, and commercial truck rental. Expanding beyond the United States into Canada, the United Kingdom, Ireland, Germany, and Puerto Rico. This is a day that, thanks to your dedication and performance, we enjoy unparalleled financial strength and stability. And thanks to the Taylor family's continued commitment and investment into the business, we can be sure of long-term sustainability. Together, we stand ready to leverage the combined strengths of Enterprise, National, and Alamo to move our company to a whole new level of growth and success. We have always exceeded customers' expectations, listening to and taking care of them better than anyone in our industry. We have always created significant opportunities for the success of our company and our employees. Today, we are positioned to do these things better than ever before. It is truly a great day for all of us at Enterprise, National, and Alamo. We will continue to exceed and succeed.